안 오셔?
무슨 일이에요?
내가 왜 서울 건데? 내가 뭐였지? 내가 가지고 차치했어.
이걸 가지고 있다가 가지고 있는 사람들이 전시해 놨다가 줄래요?
네, 볼 수 있어요. 그리고 두 분께서 네, 안녕하세요. 저 제주포럼인데요. 혹시 조승희 연구원님 계십니까? 아, 혹시 휴대폰 연락처
한국 대통령은 시사가 시사가
네,
인터내셔널 코퍼레이션
4230
세트라인.
다시 한번 불러주실래요?
근데 지금 하나밖에 안 써요. 지금 두 개밖에 안 올라왔거든요. 누구하고 누구 거 올랐어요?
4230번에 공사를요.
앨리스 누구하고 누구 거 올라왔고?
네, 봤습니다. 잠시만요.
누구하고 누구 거? 세 분이서
지금 제가 확인 안 해봤어요. 근데 이건 아마 소개가 없어서 그런 거였어요.
로버트 길드? 여보세요? 로버트 길드. 그거랑
저기 메모할 수 있는
박규정.
메모지
그러니까 앨리스가
아니
나온
그거
거
말고
같은데?
큰 노트
조준혜? 박규정 PP가 맞죠?
저밖에 안 보셨어요.
근데 지금 여기 이 자리에 서로 가지고 있는 자리에 보니까 하나, 둘, 셋, 넷. 네 개가 맞는 것 같은데 발표 자료가? 응. 앨리 시간밖에 없어요. 네. 네. 네, 앨리 시간화가 안 올라왔고, 그 다음에, 사람? 발표자료가 3개가 맞아? 4개가 아니라? 3개?
하나 중국인
누가 보고
하나 로봇을 수업해요.
수업이 있다고? 그게 아니라 하나 지금 하나, 둘, 셋, 4개잖아.
네, 조승 연구원 맞습니까? 조승 연구원은 맞습니까? 아, 네, 안녕하세요. 제주포럼입니다.
지금 제주코리아?
네, 다름이 아니라 저 이번에
조준은
크리스탈 10월에서 스승을 했는데요.
MRV 여유로부터
시간 괜찮으시면 여기 와서 확인부터 확인해 주실 수 있습니까? 아, 네.
지금 프레젠터가 지금 4개로 되어 있잖아요. 근데 지금 2개밖에 안 올라오는데 로버트 밀리는 인터내셔널 콜라보레이션 on climate change response for the transportation sector and development countries. 이거 제목. 제목 들으셨어요? 인터내셔널 콜라보레이션 Climate Change Response for the Transformation Sector of Developing Countries. 이거 지금 2개밖에 안 나와요. 프레스시 이거 정맥을 치고 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 올라가 있다가 나오거든? 지금 체크해볼게요. 네.
Can I check the presentation for this ad?
운동을 안 해봤어요.
이거 안에 있어요. 아까 보여준 거.
조금 안 해요. 권래건 씨고 그리고 앨리스
다 올라온 거야?
어느 거예요? 어느 거
다 올라와 있네. 올라와 있네. 이거 다 올라와 있네.
이거 드레스
다.
이런 거 그리고
다른 거 아니에요. 다른 거 아니에요. 정래광 씨만.
앨리스 거는
엘리씨 거는 여기 안에 내가 따로 있잖아. 확실하게 얘기를 해주세요.
I have the presentation here. Yes. I have the presentation here. I mean, that's it. That's
다 됐어요. 다 됐어요.
배를 12분 되면
한 10분이요? 그러니까 한 분씩 네, 다시 돼요. 네.
네, 첫 10분 왔으면 하고 늦어도 15분 내로 12분 되면 되는 게 있다고 말해요.
네.
뭐래요? 거기 등록이 안 된 거래요?
USB로 가죠. 네네. 네.
운행원들이랑 왔어? 아니죠?
운행원들과 이거 12분, 저 발표자 한 분이 12분 되면 좀 칠 수 있어요.
요걸로 바꿔주세요. 아까 해보자요. 마지막에 아니 저
정래원 씨.
그거 아니 그거 말고 이거 첫 번째. 네, 요걸로. 안 할수 안 할수. 어?
네. 이거 12분, 한 사람 12분 꽂혀야 된다. 크게 쳐요.
혹시 이거 지금 일단은 지금 앞으로 저기를 도와주시는 네. 밖에 호텔 시간인데 아니 금방입니다. 여기 돌아가시면 지금 바로 시작하죠? 네, 바로 시작하고
다시 연락해. 스펠링을 말해주는 거.
저도 많이 만들었습니다.
회 시작하면 회 중에 가져올 텐데. 그치. 회 시작하면 타이밍 그럼 너 갔던데. 근데 이거 틀어야 되잖아. 갔다 와. 이거 만들어서.
이게 앨리스거든요.
틀으면 순서대로지.
로봇. 이게 정답이죠.
맨 처음에 뭐 이거?
안녕하십니까. 저는 오늘 사회를 맡은 한국교통연구원 기후변화대응센터의 조성희입니다. 바쁘신데도 불구하고 귀한 시간을 내어 참석하여 주신 모든 분들께 먼저 감사의 말씀을 드립니다. 그럼 지금부터 한국교통연구원이 주최하는 개도국의 교통부분 기후변화 대응을 위한 국제협력 방안 세션을 시작하겠습니다. 세션의 일정을 간단히 말씀드리겠습니다. 잠시 후 환영사가 있겠으며 약 40분가량 발표자 4분의 주제 발표가 있겠습니다. 예, 잠시 통역기 기계를 착용하는 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 지금 통역되고 있나요?
채널 1. 채널
1번이 한국어, 2번이 영어입니다.
채널 2.
2번이 영어인가요? 그럼 본격적인 발표에 앞서 한국교통연구원 김경철 원장님의 환영사가 있겠습니다.
Yeah. Honorable Lee Won-chung, he is here, the Director of Division for Environment and Development of UN SCAP, and Robert Wild, Director of Pacific Asia Transport and Energy Division of ADB, here, and Byu Eli Shinaga, in the middle, the Director of Urban Transport System Development, Minister of Transport in Indonesia, and distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'm very honored to delighted to welcome you today here in Jeju, one of the most popular tourist attractions in the world. This is well known for the harmony between the pedagogical nature and modernized social infrastructure. Jeju, distinguished from the Korean Peninsula by its exotic and beautiful nature's landscape, has been loved by many people for a long time. But unfortunately, current climate change, as a result of the increase of greenhouse gas, pose a serious threat to the biodiversity of Jeju. As you already know, the climate change is most unpredictable and uncontrollable problem we are facing now in 21st century. Given this, it is true to say that the urgent and appropriate countermeasure to reduce greenhouse gas in transport sector should be identified and implemented. Korean government has announced in a national target to reduce greenhouse gas emission by 30% by 2020 below business as usual levels. Especially the fact that the reduction target in transportation sector in Korea is set by 34% reflects the strong willingness of the government to achieve it. In the country of South Asia, which are low-lying coastal areas and insufficient of drainage capacity, many people recognize the pressing problem that flooding and landslides due to frequent heavy rains damage transportation facility. This would worsen the quality of life and be barrier to economic growth. Even more, put the innocent plant and the animal species as well as human in danger. Therefore, the international cooperation and support for the developing countries are essential to successfully accomplish the global greenhouse gas reduction target and help them adopt unusual climate. If all countries shared their knowledge and technology, we could maximize the benefit from the greenhouse gas reduction policy while minimizing the cost and greatly contribute to environmentally friendly and sustainable development. I truly hope that this forum, this seminar will be a very beneficial event for all by the exchange of thought and the expertise. Lastly, I'd like to express my deep gratitude to ZPS Institute and its members to charge of this program coordination, and also our participants here. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
예, 감사합니다. 이어서 네 분의 주제 발표를 듣도록 하겠습니다. 발표 시간은 10분이며 15분을 넘지 않아 주시면 감사하겠습니다. 12분이 되면 벨이 울리겠습니다. 첫 번째로 한국교통연구원 조준행 센터장께서 발표해 주시겠습니다.
안녕하십니까. 한국말로 하겠습니다. 저는 요즘 우리 연구원의 박병정 박사와 함께 교통부문의 남아를 어떻게 구현할 것인가에 관한 연구를 하고 있습니다. 현재 연구가 완전히 마무리된 단계가 아니기 때문에 오늘 발표드릴 내용은 사실 아이디어 수준의 내용입니다. 교통부문에서 남아를 어떻게 구현해 나갈 것인지에 관한 저희가 가진 생각을 말씀을 드리겠습니다. 교통부문은 기후변화에서 상당히 중요한 비중을 차지하고 있습니다. 전 세계적으로 배출되는 온실가스, 에너지 부문에서 배출되는 온실가스의 약 25%가 교통부문에서 배출이 되고 있습니다. 한국의 경우는 한 20% 정도만 배출이 되고 있는데요. 그 얘기는 한국은 국토가 좁고 대중교통 분담 비율이 상대적으로 높아서 세계 수준보다는 조금 낮은 수준을 배출하는 것으로 이제 볼 수가 있습니다. 그렇지만 20%도 여전히 사실 굉장히 높은 비중입니다. 그래서 교통 부문에서 온실가스를 줄이는 것이 중요한데요. 비중이 높기 때문이기도 하지만 한 가지 더 중요한 사실이 있습니다. 다른 산업 부문에서 온실가스를 과도하게 줄일 경우에 비용이 급격하게 올라가서 산업 경쟁력이 약화되고 경제 활동에 위축을 가져올 수가 있습니다. 반면에 교통 부문에서는 온실가스를 상당히 높은 비중으로 감축을 해도 경제에 큰 부담을 안 주는 그런 특성이 있습니다. 그래서 사실은 교통 부문에서 온실가스를 줄이는 것이 기후변화를 대응해 나가는데 아주 중요한 의미를 갖고 있습니다. 그렇지만 교통 부문에서 온실가스를 줄이는 것이 쉽지가 않습니다. 문제는 이제 쉽지가 않다는 데 있는데요. 그럼 교통 부문에서 온실가스를 줄이는 방법을 살펴보면 죄송합니다. 여러 가지를 얘기했었나요? 됐습니다. 제가 눈이 너무 나빠가지고 잘 안 보여서 이게 같이 여기다 놓고 했는데 이게 영 맞지가 않는군요. 정말 여러 가지로 죄송합니다. 이거랑 영 너무 안 맞는데? 여기다 맞추죠. 아니 이게 안 맞는 거지. 버전이 안 맞는 걸 갖고 온 것 같은데. 이거 없잖아요. 저기요, 버전 1이라고 써 있는 걸 키우세요. 죄송합니다.
이것이 버전 1입니다.
아니 이게 버전 자체가 안 맞아요. 한참 전에 죄송합니다. 그거 말고 그 전에 거. 저희가 여기 그 맞을 거. 맞아요. 교통 부문에서 온실가스를 줄일 수 있는 방안이 두 가지 옵션으로 흔히 분류가 되는데요. 첫 번째는 기술적인 옵션입니다. 기술 개발을 통해서 자동차의 성능을 개선해서 온실가스를 줄이는 방안이 있고요. 다음 한 가지가 이제 정책적인 방안입니다. 대중교통수단의 이용을 높이고 승용차 이용을 억제하고 이러한 효율성을 통해서 교통체계의 효율성 개선을 통해서 온실가스를 줄이는 방안이 되겠습니다. 결국 이러한 방안을 통해서 좀 빨리 넘어가겠습니다. 시간이 많이 지체됐기 때문에. 그래서 교통 부문에서 온실가스를 줄이는 방안이 줄이기 위한 방안이 두 가지 중에 지금 저희가 관심을 갖고 있는 것은 기술적인 옵션보다는 정책적 옵션이 되겠습니다. 어떻게 이 정책적 옵션을 최대한 발현을 해서 온실가스를 줄일 것인가. 그것을 이제 북돋우는 방안으로 논의되고 있는 것이 CDM이나 나마가 되겠습니다. 나마 같은 경우는 지금 방법 MRV가 이게 나마 같은 경우는 측정과 검증, 보고와 검증 이 프로세스에 관한 것들이 아직 확립이 되어 있지가 않습니다. 그래서 성급한 그 기후변화 협상의 협상가들 중에는 이것이 남아를 교통 부문에 적용하는 것은 거의 물 건너간 것이 아니냐라는 얘기까지도 나오고 있습니다. 그렇지만 남아가 여전히 많은 가능성을 갖고 있는 수단이 있기 때문에 이것을 어떻게 할 것인가를 저희가 연구를 하고 있는데요. 정말 죄송합니다. 여러 가지로 이게 맞지를 않아갖고, 네, 그냥 설명을 드리겠습니다. 남아가 네? 맞지가 않아요. 가장 중요한 것이 측정과 검증과 보고인데 이것이 방법론이 굉장히 좀 엄격합니다. CDM 같은 경우에 엄격한 방법론을 적용하고 있어서 그것이 교통 부문에는 잘 맞지 않습니다. 왜 그러냐면 교통 부문은 이동 오염원이고 그런 것들을 일일이 다 추적해서 측정하기가 어렵기 때문입니다. 그래서 그러한 엄격한 방법론을 적용하기가 거의 불가능한데요. 사실 그런 불가능한 상태를 극복해내기 위한 또 어떠한 방법이 있을 것인가, 그것이 이제 많은 관심을 받고 있는 주제가 되겠습니다. 결국 저희가 이번 연구에서 제시하고자 하는 그런 방법은 그런 완벽한 방법은 불가능하다, 존재하지 않는다. 그래서 그렇다면 현실적인 타협을 해야 되는데 어떻게 타협할 것인가. 저희는 지금부터 말씀드리는 내용으로 그 타협안을 제시하고자 합니다. 첫 번째는 표준화를 하는 것입니다. 그래서 이 CDM처럼 개별 사업에 대해서 정확하게 온실가스 배출량을 측정해내는 그러한 방법에 의존하는 것이 아니고 매우 간단한 변수들, 측정이 쉬운 매우 간단한 변수들을 가지고 효과를 측정해내는 간단한 방법을 만들어내는 겁니다. 그래서 예를 들어서 승용차 교통량이라든지 대중교통 이용 승객 수라든지 그러한 예를 들어 어떠한 도시에 대해서 남아를 적용했을 경우에 그 도시의 1년 동안의 대중교통 승객 수, 그 도시의 주요 도로나 간선도로의 주요 구간에서의 승용차 교통량, 연간 교통량입니다. 그러한 간단한 변수들로 계산을 해내는 방법을 적용을 하는 겁니다. 그렇게 할 경우에 여러 가지 오차 요인들도 있고 다른 변수들이 영향을 미칠 수가 있습니다. 교통 외적인 요인들, 가령 GDP라든지 연료, 휘발유의 요금이라든지 휘발유의 가격이라든지 여러 가지 외적 요인들이 영향을 미칠 수가 있습니다. 그러한 외적 요인의 영향을 분석해내는 방법도 매우 간단한 방법으로 모형화를 하는 겁니다. 그래서 첫 번째, 표준화된 그런 방법에 의해서 효과를 분석을 하고, 두 번째, 외적 요인들에 의한 효과도 매우 간단한 틀로 효과를 상쇄해 나가는, 줄여나가는 겁니다. 그렇게 해서 전체적인 방법을 매우 간단한 틀로 표준화를 하고 그 방법을 적용하는 겁니다. 그렇게 할 경우에 개별 프로젝트에 대해서는 어느 정도 오차가 심해질 수가 있습니다. 그렇지만 전체적인 큰 틀에서 그러니까 어느 한 해에 10개의 남아 사업이 승인을 받았다면 각 개별 프로젝트의 정확도는 떨어질 수 있어도 전체 10개 합친 거의 정확도는 어느 정도 맞출 수가 있을 겁니다. 그러한 방법론을 개발을 하고, 그러한 방법론을 각 사업자가 시행하는 게 아니고, 각 사업자가 개발하는 게 아니고, CDM DB처럼 남아를 추진하는 어떤 그런 국제기구가 그러한 표준화된 방법론을 개발을 해서 공표를 하고, 각 사업 시행자는 그 표준화된 방법론에서 요구하는 최소한의 요건들을 현장에 적용하기 위한 변화 정도만 해서 아주 쉽게 승인을 받아서 기본적인 요건만 갖추면 남아 사업으로 인정을 받고, 그거에 따른 효과를 이제 하게 되는, 인정받게 되는 그러한 프로세스를 만드는 겁니다. 그러니까 CDM과 다른 점은 개별 사업자가 방법론을 개발하고 모든 것을 하는 게 아니고, 남아를 이행하는 그런 국제기구가 표준화된 방법론과 여러 가지 지침들을 개발을 하고, 사업 시행자는 거기서 요구하는 최소한의 요건들만 갖추면 사업을 인정을 받는 그러한 겁니다. 그렇게 할 경우에 많은 개도국들이 그러한 사업을 내 혜택을 볼 수가 있었습니다. 그리고 그 과정에서 많은 데이터들, 표준화된 데이터가 필요하기 때문에 국제협력도 반드시 필요합니다. 그러한 거기에 표준화된 모형이라든지 방법론을 개발하는 데 필요한 여러 가지 데이터들을 개발하고 축적할 수 있는 그러한 프로세스가 필요하기 때문에 국제협력도 필수적이고, 그러한 과정을 거치게 되면 몇 년간 이제 또 축적된 데이터로 방법론을 정교하게 만들어 나간다면 남아가 스무스하게 정착을 할 수 있는 그러한 방안이라고 봅니다. 물론 그건 이제 그러한 방법도 가능하고, 한편으로는 CDM처럼 사업 시행자가 모든 것을 개발해서 승인을 받아서 할 수도 있는 그러한 열어둘 수도 있을 겁니다. 그렇지만 중요한 뼈대 도시교통에서 대중교통 사업이라든지 메트로 사업이라든지 이런 거대한 사업 한두 개에 대해서 그럼 초점을 맞춰서 방법론을 개발하고 그 방법론이 쉽게 적용될 수 있도록 해나가는 그러한 것을 저희 연구부지는 지금 현재 연구를 하고 있고, 올 연말이 되면 지금 말씀드린 이런 아이디어를 바탕으로 한 상당히 정교한 그런 결과물을 내놓을 수 있을 것으로 기대를 하고 있습니다. 여러 가지로 미숙했었던 점 양해해 주시기 바랍니다. 대단히 감사합니다.
예, 감사합니다. 다음은 인도네시아 교통부의 엘리 시나가 도시교통개발국장께서 발표해 주시겠습니다.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just would like to thank firstly to Koti inviting me for this event. So this is the first time for me to join this Jeju Forum. It is the beautiful island, I think.
Yeah.
Although I still do not have time to spend for sightseeing here. Okay, I just would like to present you the international collaborations on climate change in the transportation sectors in Indonesia. Yeah, these are some agenda that I would like to present. Firstly, the issue of the climate change and transportation sector in Indonesia, it is really attractive. You must be crazy to see our transportations in Indonesia. Secondly, as mentioned by Mr. Joe, we also would like to present you the Indonesia NAMAS development. And then collaborations, what does it mean? I think this is the international definitions we should use. And then what is the potential international collaborations that I propose, and I will conclude with the conclusions and recommendations. So Indonesia, it is the developing countries. Our population is now about 240 million people. So Indonesia is the fourth rank of the world populations. The first one China, second India, thirdly US, United States, and Indonesia is the fourth. And our capital city of Jakarta itself, the population, it is more than, the population, it is more than 10 million. It is only for Jakarta. But Jakarta megapolitan, Jakarta metro, with the surroundings, because the commuting is very big now, it is around 26 million people now. 26 million. And in Jakarta itself, the number of cars, it is already 8.3 million. So it means that number of cars per capita, it is quite high, 830 per 1,000 populations. As you may see from this chart, this is the growth of our vehicles. It is tremendously high. You may see that here, number of cars per year more than 10%. In Jakarta itself, more than 1,000 motorcycles, especially registered in one day. In one day. So it is a very good for business in automotives in Indonesia. In Jakarta itself, 600 cars registered every day. So this is our situations. This is the traffic. Mostly of the vehicles, it is motorcycles. Even in Bali, some people already been in Bali. Now in Bali, there are more number of motorcycles than the people. So this is the pictures. It is not only in Jakarta, the capital city, but some other big and medium sized cities. Our public transportations, this is a very huge demand. We have the BRT, BRT, Bus Rapid Transit, so-called in Jakarta, Transjakarta, and now it is developed already in some 14 other cities. But you see, the demand is very high. This is the shelters. It is really crowded. So it is also a good business. But you may have a look here, the capacity for the BRT is still very small. And the frequencies, everything, we should improve. So if you are looking to the, our fuels, unfortunately, still subsidized for the fossil fuels. So it is more than 50% subsidy. So we have a very big problem due to our last policy. We tried to increase the price of these fuels last month, but it is refused by the parliament. If you may have a look here, that our subsidy coming for the land transportation itself, it is around 90%, 89% for land transportation. And if you have a look here, that the number of the subsidy to cars, 53%, motorcycle 40%, means for private car, already 93% of our subsidy coming to these private cars, and only 3% for the public vehicles. So it means that our public transportation is still not popular in Indonesia. So this is the price of fuels in some other countries. For instance, in Indonesia, our price only is 0.3, only 30 cent euro. Yeah, if we compare to Korea, for instance, I think this already increased yet. This is not 1.06 euro. I took this from GIZ. I think it is already more than that. Yeah. You are taxed your fuels, yeah, but we give the subsidy. And if this is the consumption in Indonesia, so this year we have 40 million kiloliters of gasoline that we need. And in this chart, we can have a look that in Germany, if the price of fuels is going up to this 1 euro, that's I think the capability of the people to pay. The CO2, it is becoming down. CO2 becoming down, it means the consumptions of the fuels, it is also going down. So regarding the climate change, it is good, I think. We have to reform our subsidizing of our fuel, the policy of this fuel. So for CO2 itself, in 1980, the numbers is 69.1 million tons of our CO2. So if we compare, for instance, to Brazil, we are only about 1/3. But in the year of 2007, we are even bigger than Brazil. So due to our fuel subsidized policy, our CO2 is becoming higher and higher. And you may have looked here that in the year of 2005, it is still 330 million tons. And it is predicted it will become 1,400 tons in 2020. So in these last 3 decades, in Indonesia, our CO2 becoming 4.5 times. Although you may have looked for Malaysia, it is even more, around more than 6 times. Yeah, but if we are looking to, this is the represents for ASEAN countries, Indonesia represents 59% of the total GHG emissions. 59%. But we have the commitment, such as in Korea, our president mentioned in COP15 in Copenhagen, that we have the commitment to reduce our emissions up to 26% by our own. And it is becoming 41% if there is international cooperations. Actually, as a non-annexed country, we don't have to do this, so this is only voluntary. But because we want it to be part of the global solutions, so we have this commitment. So this commitment, we are not just lips of service. And just last year, the Presidential Regulations number 61, it is already issued, Presidential Decree number 61. It is regarding our Indonesia NAMAS. So in this Presidential Decrees, it is mentioned our mitigation actions. We have 55 actions that have to be done. It is for 5 sectors. One of the sectors is energy and transportation. So for the transportation sectors, we have to reduce our emissions up to 6% out of 26%. So it is quite big. And as Mr. Joe just mentioned, we do also already issued our MRV method for Indonesia. It is also issued by the Presidential Regulations number 71. So we have these 2 presidential regulations. We have the rule of engagement, what to do to reduce our emissions. So these are the NAMAS that we propose to the UNFCCC. We have 7 mitigation actions, and 2 of them are promotions of energy efficiency, and the other one is shifting to low emission transport mode. So it means that we do have to revitalize our public transportations. I think you know this chart. So if we are doing nothing, So business as usual, this is CO2 growth. So we are expecting to reduce 26% by our own. So by this forum, I hope that we can make any cooperations, international cooperations, so we can add it up to another 15% to become 41% with the international supported numbers. So what is the international collaborations? I think there is a definition from UNFCCC and also from the IPCC. In my presentation, I'm just using the IPCC 2002 for international corporations, meaning that a broad set of process convening the flows of know-how, experience, and equipment for mitigating and adapting to climate change amongst different stakeholders such as governments, private sector entities, financial institutions, NGOs, and research education institutions. So by this IPCC, the difference with the UNFCCC, by these IPCC definitions, the collaboration, it is not only flowing from developed towards developing countries, but could be between developing and developing countries. Technology transfer, yes, I think this is one of the primary concerns for developing countries always propose. Yeah, with the concept embracing like the TNA, technology needs assessment, technology informations, enabling activities, and capacity building. Yeah, so these are the four areas that usually we are proposing. Collaborative research and development, I think this is also really important. Yeah, because to be honest, in Indonesia, for the research and development, probably we have a lot of R&D, yeah, but we just keep it in ourselves. Yeah, we are not disseminating or even implementing. So the potential benefits. So what are the aspects to be considered? Yeah, these are the aspects that if you like to do the cooperations, because by having these cooperations, the potential benefits we can share. Yeah, I can give you the examples for cooperations. Yeah, last time this is the examples. It is a good cooperations, SARS, yeah, to identify SARS, the virus. We know this SARS is very dangerous. And at that time, there are certain laboratories in 10 countries working together to identify this genome of the virus. And it is only in around 4 weeks. Yeah, it is only 4 weeks they can identify the virus. So it means that it will not saving time and money, but also saving lives. Yeah, so this is very good cooperations, because now global, we are not no longer country by country, but we are one. So these are some international collaborations potentials. Yeah, it is regarding the transport data management. Yes, regarding MRV, NAMAS, we need data. Yeah. And in developing countries, especially in my countries, for data, we are still very poor on these things. Yeah. And our MRV, it is measurable, it's reportable, verifications. We need the exact data, the definitions, and etc. Secondly, technology and knowledge, data monitoring system and tools, and capacity building. It's always. I think these 4 areas we could cooperate with the background of our strategy, which is established in Marrakesh. Yeah, this is the avoid the trips, how to avoid the trips, and then how to shift our modes from private cars to public transport or to the non-motorized, and to improve our vehicles technology or our fuels. So we can have the cooperations refer to this strategy, I think. This is also the same. So these are the transport mitigations programs. So I told you that the presidential decree is already issued. We have 55 programs, and 15 of the programs it is under the Ministry of Transportations, and 9 of it under the land transportations. These are the mitigation actions that are asked by the presidents. how to develop our BRT, how to develop our non-motorized transportations, even for the gasifications. Yeah, we have a lot of gas, we export our gas a lot, but we don't use it domestically. Yeah, so we have to develop these gasifications, ITS, intelligence transport system, etc. Even the TDM, transport demand management system. So that's all my presentation, and I will conclude that transport is a key sector for climate change mitigations and adaptations. So I do propose that because this coming Rio Plus 20, from our country, we put forward this transportation as an agenda for the Rio Plus 20. And secondly, international collaboration, it is essential in catalyzing climate change mitigations and adaptation efforts in developing countries. International collaborations offers much needed progress. However, drawbacks has to be considered because sometimes drawbacks also will slow our project. And lastly, R&D, research and development. It is one of the key players in international collaborations efforts. So I propose that this should be mainstreaming this R&D into the decision-making process in developing countries such as Coty in Korea. Thank you very much.
네, 감사합니다. 다음은 ADB의 로버트 길드 교통에너지국장께서 발표해 주시겠습니다.
Thank you very much. If it's all right with everyone, I'll just stay here and try to make my presentation fairly informative. I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Kim and Coty colleagues for the invitation, both yesterday in Seoul and today here in Jeju, to participate in this important topic. The Asian Development Bank's role in transportation and climate change is a little bit different from the role of organizations like Coty, and certainly a little bit different from the role of governments. We're in the business of facilitating change through both finance and technical knowledge, but we do so in partnership with governments. We don't do it on our own. I would also like to thank my Dr. Joe and Dr. Sinaga for giving the first half of my presentation for me. So I can move right on to what we're doing here in ADB. Transportation is by far the largest sector in ADB's operations. It makes up more than 1/3 of our lending historically. We have lent something like $40 billion over the last 40 years for transportation development, and we currently lend on the order of $4 billion a year in the Asia-Pacific region. That sounds like a lot, but it's not. It's in single figures in terms of total investment in the region. So the real question is, how can we be a little bit more catalytic with our interventions? So for that reason, ADB has a sustainable transport initiative that was passed in 2010 as the bank-wide transport sector policy. This is important because it helps us to realign our support to member country governments in terms of 4 focus areas: scaling up urban transport, mainstreaming climate change in everything we do in the sector, and then improving cross-border logistics and road safety. Now, those first 2 bullet points are important because the first has to do with mitigation, and the second has to do with adaptation. And we tackle both of those. Now, Dr. Sinaga has already put up this particular schematic about avoiding, shifting, and improving. In what we do in ADB in terms of avoidance has to do with policy advice, making the linkage between land use planning and transportation demand or travel demand. When we talk about shifting to more energy efficient modes of transport to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we work on things like bus rapid transit, metro rail, even non-motorized transportation. Making greater use of inland waterways to get traffic off the roads, making greater use of rail to move quantities of freight as well as passengers. In terms of improving transportation, we work on not so much alternative vehicles and fuels. This is an area that we would like to do more in, and there's plenty of scope for collaboration with organizations like Coty to work on address just very briefly some examples of what we do in terms of both mitigation and adaptation. To really know what's going on as an effect of our investments, we have started developing methodologies for carbon footprinting of ADB's transport investments. This is not easy, as our colleagues from Coty will know, who are doing much more work on this than we are. We've actually had to go out and develop our own model of transport emissions evaluation models for projects, which is now being applied to a very few number of projects, and we hope to scale this up in the very near future. But we are using this to help ADB's member countries measure the impact of their investments so that they can monitor the effect on their NUTS. And this is a very important initiative for us. We're doing this through collaboration with the Clean Air Initiative and ITDP. We have just very recently produced a new study on reducing emissions, reducing carbon footprint of our projects. I'll put up the website address later for those who are interested in finding it. On the adaptation side, this is a big feature of what we do across the Asia-Pacific region, working on climate-resilient transport development. Most infrastructure facilities across most of Asia are close to the coastlines. They're vulnerable to sea level rise, vulnerable to storm surge, increased storm intensity. And if it's not close to the coast, it tends to be in the mountains where erosion and rainfall are a very big problem. So we put a lot of effort into what we call climate proofing of our investments. And to try to analyze that, we have been doing some significant new work on understanding the economics of climate proofing our projects. To put it very briefly, this is straightforward, looking at the economic rates of return of the incremental investment to strengthen a project versus the increased lifespan, the economic life of the assets. In the worst case scenario, if everything goes wrong, climate proofing actually helps us safeguard about 1/3 of the net benefits of transport projects. In the average scenario, it's double that, or about 2/3. So when you add climate proofing to a project, and then you do those sort of sensitivity analyses that the economists in the room will recognize, it actually can help make projects viable. So adding climate proofing measures to our infrastructure investments actually improves the overall viability of projects. Now, paying for all of this is not easy. There are huge needs for adaptation and mitigation financing across Asia Pacific in the many hundreds of billions of dollars. We have a small role in helping to broker climate change actions and to make them more affordable and competitive by helping countries to mobilize concessional resources from places like the Global Environment Facility or the UNFCCC funds, the Climate Investment Funds in Washington. We work very hard at maximizing the use of market-based mechanisms and catalyzing private capital, but we have a long way to go on this. Our latest... That means I get one more minute. Okay. I'll conclude by mentioning the vehicle, pardon the pun, for trying to operationalize our international partnerships through our investment planning. ADB has set up something called the Sustainable Transport Partnership Facility. This facility has two parts. The first is a partnership window in which we are actively seeking contributions for the trust fund, as well as expertise. And this is where organizations like Coty, like SCAT, which Dr. Chung is representing, can participate without writing a check by helping us to design better projects, helping us to apply the very latest research to our project development. And then the other part of it is the innovation window, where we provide policy advice to countries, because as I said, our money is not enough, but perhaps we can make a difference through policy dialogue. And again, there is an area with considerable scope for collaboration. So I'm going to transport heading or after the slash climate change? Thank you very much.
예, 감사합니다. 다음은 UNESCAP 정내관 환경개발국장께서 발표해 주시겠습니다.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm not a transport expert like Dr. Gild and our Indonesian expert and others. The role of ESCAP is a bit different from ADB, as it was mentioned by Dr. Gill, that ESCAP is an intergovernmental organization, and we are dealing with how to change the paradigm and norm of development in the region. So we are developing new development norms and paradigms. This is our role because of intergovernmental discussions. I'm very glad that I've just launched, before I come over here, last Monday in Bangkok, this new publication, which is Low Carbon Green Growth Roadmap for Asia Pacific. The design is the same, but the title is different. This is available in the website, even in Google. You can just Google Low Carbon Green Growth Roadmap, and then you can get this report. And then, because the reason I'm mentioning this report first is that what is the importance or significance of transport sector in promoting a new development paradigm? I think green transport is a key component of new development paradigm. We cannot develop without moving around, right? So it's a very important component. I'll just go very quickly. What is the low carbon green growth roadmap means? Actually, why we have to change our development paradigm? I have to start from this. Because this region is facing a resource constraint and climate crisis. These are the two here, resource constraint and climate crisis. The days of abundant resources and low energy material price is gone, and we have to adapt to changing economic environment. It's economic environment, meaning that we have to shift from current energy, resource, carbon intensive development pattern towards energy, resource, carbon efficient development pattern. And I call it as a low carbon green growth. Then, how can you do it? I don't want to show all this data here. This is, I just want to highlight one of these. This is about net energy import ratio of the countries. In the case of Singapore, in year 2000, it was about 8% of GDP. It is now about 28% of Singapore GDP spent only on importing energy. It shows the magnitude of the burden on economy from rising oil price. Korea is about now, over here, 17%. 17% of GDP paid only for importing energy. Isn't it huge? Yes, but can we sustain, if it becomes 25% or 35%, can we sustain that? So then what should we do? That is a very important question, not to mention climate change. Because if I talk about climate change, many developing countries have a very sensitive and allergic attitude, saying that, oh, why should I take care of climate change, which is caused by developed country, not me, right? This is a very political, but that's why I'm highlighting more on resource constraint. Yeah? So we have to, therefore that, what should we do? We have to do very urgently two things. This is based on the storyline of this roadmap. We need a fundamental economic system change. What is that? Visible structure and invisible structure of our economy has to be changed together. Visible structure means typically transport system, energy system, water system, buildings. These are all with urban design. These are all what you can see. I call them visible structure. This visible structure has to be changed based on resource efficiency. Before we were developing, Korea was developing our transport system based on American model of highway and private car. Now, over the weekend, last week, we had a 3-week-long weekend, and the Korean Peninsula became a parking lot. Everybody driving out, and the Korean Peninsula became a parking lot. All the highway turned into a parking lot, right? So we made a wrong choice. Then, but is there any other alternative? Yes, there is an alternative. You go over to Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong. In Japan, nobody is driving private car to go on highway or holidays, right? So there's a different models available, but we made the wrong choice of American model. So this is, so I call that as a visual structure. The other is an invisible structure. So I call market price, all this kind of thing. So I don't have time to go over, but I will go quickly. But I have identified 5 tracks of change for sustainability. Number one is we have to shift from quantity of growth to quality of growth. And the changing visual structure, changing invisible structure, promote green business, and promoting low carbon development strategy. These are the 5 tracks we are promoting. These are, our report is not only just a storyline. We have in fact compiled 114, 63 fact sheet means that policy options. We have identified 63 policy options for low carbon growth and 51 case studies. One of the case studies about Indonesian failed fuel subsidy phase out. We are highlighting it as one of the best example, best practice of how to phase out fuel subsidy. Indonesian government did it by paying $20 per household, and very, very useful and a very good example. I'm showing this kind of thing. I don't want to repeat the same story, but the main point here, I want just to show you how the modal share and all this. Where is it? This is about, but I don't have time. I don't think I have time for this, because traffic congestion is a main driver of increasing hidden GDP losses. I'm highlighting this a lot from in 10 years ago. Not necessarily about CO2 emission, but what is more appealing to the policymaker and the people, I think it's not CO2 emission. Rather, it is hidden GDP loss. Korea is losing 2.6% of GDP simply from traffic congestion. But last year, Korean economy grew about 3%. But we lost 2.6% from traffic congestion alone. Then our economy, has it already really grown? In fact, it's not. It didn't grow at all. But we are not accounting this in our equation. That's why I'm highlighting this. So traffic congestion is, according to the country, is quite different. So we need to look for the better, good practices. Actually, my ambition is to develop a more comprehensive modality, methodology, to calculate this kind of traffic congestion cost in the region, so that the policymakers can realize that transport is really a critical sector to improve the quality of growth and to improve quality of life, because Koreans are suffering a lot from traffic congestion. Quality of life is really going down because of traffic congestion. So then my question is, now we have to urgently shift from private car-based system to public car-based model, public transport model. Then many people are asking, is it possible? Yes, that is possible. Go to Singapore and go to Japan. They are already doing like that. And this is some of the modal differences or urban planning. Houston per capita emission is almost 6,000 kilograms per CO2 per person. Hong Kong, 300 kilograms. So there's a huge gap of saving. Is there? I don't have to, you are the transport expert, I don't have to explain this, all this. So, this is a benefit, economic benefit of rail. We have invested too much in road. I think we have to urgently shift it to rail. But there are obstacles, because we don't realize very much about the collective and social benefit from public transportation. I think this is a time and price gap. There are many gaps there. But also the best practice of Singapore and Japan is not very well publicized or not very well replicated in many other cities. Because cities in Asia continue to repeat the same traffic congestion again and again and again. Go to Bangkok, go to Beijing, everywhere you go, Jakarta, you are suffering and you are repeating the same mistake again and again. So no clear vision to me, I think. Yes, there are avoid, reduce, and all these are there, but still the problem is the political leaders and the people still don't think that there's no choice. In fact, there are choices. I think that's an important point. So we have to shift it to public transportation, and I'm arguing that public transportation has to be public service because of huge social benefit from public transport. I think Singapore is a good example, Japan is a good example of that. But I think that transport issue cannot be separated from urban planning. It has to go hand in hand together. Because how you design your city defines how much you have to drive, right? So it cannot be separated. So all these kinds of things, I don't have to explain all this. The potential for international cooperation, yes, mainstreaming, mobility into city, forging, identity. I don't want to go into detail. The CDM NAMA is something that Dr. Zhu has already mentioned. I was also supporting this kind of idea from a long time ago. And also, this transport has to be recognized. I'm very glad that in Rio Plus 20 outcome document, transport is already included there as one of the important action areas for very positive development. And also, we have to find out the leadership and commitment. And I think this is critical. Without political leadership and commitment, I think nothing can be changed. We can provide a lot of information, but if the politicians don't act on it, I think Ken Livingstone from London, he's the one who pioneered the charge in traffic congestion charge in London. In spite of very strong, 80% of the people in London strongly objected it. But he did it, risking his mayorship. But very luckily, he's re-elected. Because after he introduced congestion charge in London, £5, his popularity went down. Initially, they opposed it. But later on, it reversed. Because they found that it's very good. Improving air quality, traffic flows fast, and the public transportation improves. Now London people loves it. They are now £12, right? They say that they are going to increase up to £20. So it's a very good model. We have to replicate this kind of good models. So recognizing green transport as a key for green growth, I think ultimately by the political leaders, I think it holds the key. But, we can, and all these kind of things available from the website. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention.
예, 감사합니다. 이상으로 네 분의 발표를 모두 마치고 지금부터 3시 20분까지 토론 및 질의응답 시간을 갖도록 하겠습니다. 이 시간의 좌장은 유엔에스캡 정래번 환경개발국장께서 맡아주시겠습니다.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. I hope you have enjoyed the presentations from excellent panel members, and then I'd like to open the floor if you have any questions.
Thank you. My name is James Kang. I'm originally from the Korean Transport Institute, and I'm now working for the Global Green Growth Institute. Actually, I have a question to Dr. Sinaga, or possibly some of the panelists over there. And one of the striking scenes we can see in many cities of Southeast Asia is a lot of motorcycles. In your presentation, it's like a 40%. The share of the motorcycles, 40%. That's astonishing. And actually, I've been to Hanoi, and there I saw a lot of motorcyclists coming to me. It seems like some kind of flood is coming to, in my direction. And then I thought about myself that in Korea we never had that kind of situation. Many years ago, a lot of people just use, it's just it's like a bike, and then all of a sudden we just jump to the, this auto-oriented transportation society. And it's probably many developed countries, including the United States and the many countries in the European continent, I think follow the same path. Now, everybody here agreed that the most effective way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in transport sector and to reduce the loss of GDP from the traffic congestion is to promote public transportation, induce many people to the public transport systems. But I was just wondering, if people becomes more richer, have more money, then don't they want to buy a car from motorcycle? So the path, it seems to me, the path for the Indonesia or many cities, many countries in Southeast Asia is going to be a lot of motorcycle, and then they go to a lot of cars, and then finally public transportation. So it's going to take time to go to the public transportation. So it's going to take time to achieve our goal to reduce these greenhouse gas emissions as well as the loss of the GDP. So my question is probably, is there any policy intervention or strategy to make people to go directly from current motorcycle oriented, the transportation, the behavior to public transportation use. Just skipping this is a car stage. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe can you collect some questions around the table and then we can answer them. Take care of them. Is there any question?
Yeah, my name is Young Kim from Korea Transport Institute. I think you all understand English, so I use English also. I'm going to suggest. I'm not very good idea about the international cooperation for climate change, but as your presentation, I noticed that the key is to increase public transit use and suppress private car use for mitigate the greenhouse gas emissions. So I'm gonna suggest some policy combinations between public transit improvement and also non-motorized transportation. Because, as you know, public transit has stations. If you use public transit, you have to go bus stop or bus shelter or metro stations. In those excess transit, you must use walk or bike. So if there is a very well-designed walk or pathways to the public transit stations, people may think the public transit is more accessible and more convenient to use. So to improve the public transit culture, we should consider the convenient use of public transit and affordable price of the public transit, and also we think about the accessible road. This is especially for the non-motorized mode, like walking or bike. So I call these policy combinations between among the public transit improvement policy and also non-motorized. So those public combinations, policy combinations should be developed for each country or specific cities, and then those unique policy combination models should be discussed between the cities and international communities and make some models. So that's my suggestion for this exhibition.
Okay, thank you for the comment. And any other comment and question? Okay, yes.
네, 안녕하십니까. 저는 한국어로 하겠습니다. 기상청 기후변화 감센터에 근무하고 있는 강동훈이고요. 먼저 그 기후변화에 대해서 어떤 그런 물론 기후변화 인위적 오염, 아주 중요한 오염원인 교통부문에 대해 기후변화에 대한 세션을 개최해 주셔서 감사드립니다. 일단 잠깐 저희 소개를 드리면 기상청 기후변화센터는 그 자연적, 인위적으로 배출되는 어떤 기후변화의 원인 물질, 즉 온실가스, 이산화탄소, 아산화질소, 메슨, 이산화탄소 등, 그리고 에어로졸, 강수화학, 대기복사, 오존, 자외선 등 여러 가지 관측과 연구 및 보고서 매년 제가 IPC 보고 직접 하지는 않지만 거기 저희 회원도 있고 어떤 그런 보고서 발표 등 일을 하고 있습니다. 다시 한번 이런 기후변화에 대해서 세션 개최해 주신 데 감사드리면서 두 가지 질문이 있는데요. 일단 각 분야별로 기후변화에 대해 대응을 잘 하고 있지만 저도 잘 모르지만 가장 좋은 방법은 제3의 화석 연료를 대체하는 제3의 어떤 신청정 에너지 개발이 가장 확실하긴 하지만 현실적으로 바로 될 수 있는 것도 아니고 또 앞으로 석유가 46년에서 약 110년 사이에 고갈될 걸로 예측이 되기 때문에 어차피 저희가 이제 진행 중이고 앞으로 해야 될 장기적인 숙제라고 생각합니다. 그리고 두 번째는 그 어떤 아까도 설명해 주셨지만 그 기술적인 측면, 그렇죠, 에너지 효율화. 지금 우리나라도 어떻게 보면 자동차의 어떤 주요 수출국이지 않습니까? 그렇다고 우리가 온실가스 이산화탄소 유발하는 자동차의 수출을 금지할 수는 없는 것이고, 그래서 어떤 에너지의 효율화, 아까 뭐 연비, 자동차 연비 개선 등 그런 얘기를 해주신 것 같습니다. 예. 그래서 어떤 이런 있지만 제가 이 부분에서 제목을 보고 교통 부분, 기후변화, 국제협력 이런 게 마음에 들어서 듣게 됐는데요. 그래서 제가 여기서부터 질문드리고자 하는 거는 설명해 주셨지만 어떤 교통의 정체성을 막아서 자동차 공회전 등을 막아서 에너지의 비효율적인 걸 좀 막고, 그리고 주차장을 확립, 그러니까 주차장들이 많으면 주차를 찾기 위해서 또 빙빙 도는 어떤 시간적인 에너지 효율적인 측면이 많이 될 거라고 개인적으로 생각합니다. 그리고 어떤 그 항공이나 선박 등, 한국 선박 등에 상당히 많은 에너지가 사용되는 걸로 알고 있는데요. 제가 잘은 모르겠지만 예를 들어서 제주에서 러시아까지 가려면 예를 들어서 북한의 쪽이 빠르고 에너지가 덜 들겠지만 현실적으로 여러 가지 국제 그런 정치의 문제 때문에 그러지 않고 우회하고 가야 되지 않습니까? 그래서 소말리아, 해적 등의 위험 요소들 등등을 포함하면 그런 국제 협력이 어떻게 되고 있는지가 첫 번째 질문이고요. 그러니까 하고 있겠지만 어떤 이런 국제적인 에너지 효율화, 교통이라는 것은 제가 이해를 못하고 있는지 모르겠지만 한국 선박 쪽 어떤 국제 협력이 필요한 이런 부분에 대해서도 어떤 국제 협력이 지금 되고 있는지 궁금하고, 두 번째 아침에 정례관 환경개발 국장님께서 이렇게 말씀해 주셨지만 저희도 솔직히 교통, 대중교통을 이용하고 싶고 저도 이용하려고 하고 있습니다. 그러나 예를 들어서 자전거를 운동하고 싶지만 모든 도로가 평지고 어떤 국가에서 교통사고에 대한 보험을 들어주신다면 제가 자전거를 탈 수 있겠지만 어떤 그런 위험 부분이 있다 보니까 현실적으로 좀 어려운 점도 있습니다. 이론적으로는 저도 자전거를 타고 걸어야 되고 대중교통을 이용해야 되는 걸 알고 있지만, 예를 들어서 제주도에 세계 유네스코 등록된 세계 자연유산 제주도의 땅을 파서 지하철을 건립하는, 예를 들어서 예인이라는 저작물이 하나인데 지하철이나 그런 대중교통을 운행하는 것이 과연 어떤 현실적이고 경제적 여러 가지 효율적이 있는 건지 되게 궁금합니다. 두 가지 질문 드리겠습니다. 이상입니다.
Yeah, thank you very much for the comment. Okay, so maybe this will be a first round, and then maybe I can invite Dr. Shimada to answer the question specifically for you.
Okay, thank you firstly for Mr. James from TGCI. Yeah, regarding motorcycles, yes, this is a very big problem in our countries. Because in Indonesia now we got already more than 50 million motorcycles. Yes, these motorcycles actually coming because our public transportation it is far from proper. Yeah, but we have the TDM regulations now. Yeah, we just issued our new regulations on road and traffic. Yeah, it is already 2 years now. So there is a TDM, transport demand management. So we constrain the usage of private car, and then we improve the public transportations. But this is again, as mentioned by Mr. Chung, it is depend to the very strong leader. We have the autonomies. So the leaders sometimes they are very reluctant to constrain their people for moving. So they just leave. It's like, you see, it's like drugs. Yeah. They are very happy, but it is not good for them. Yeah. So it is already under our regulations. Yeah, that even we could constrain the operating area for the motorcycles. For instance, if the density of the road network, maybe we know that the volume capacity ratio. If the volume capacity ratio only 0.5, the ratio between the flow of cars and the capacity of road, only 0.5, according to our regulations, we can ban the motorcycles to come in. So in Jakarta and Surabaya, also in other cities, yeah, now we still doing the design for electronic road pricing, such as in London, Mr. Chu. So ERP in Singapore. Yeah. But again, because there is an elections in this coming June, so actually everything is already ready to implement. But this is a political issue, so I do expecting that after the elections we should promote this in Indonesia. So this is one of the regulations that we can constrain the private cars, but on the other hand, public transportation should be improved. And also according to our new regulations, public transportation, yes, it is now under the responsibilities of the government. And the government should do to give the, we call it the standard of, the minimum standard of service to the people. And then from Koti, yeah, you are proposing for TOD system, I think, yeah, the transit-oriented development. So they can combine, yes, they can still riding their motorcycles from their home, but only up to the park and ride facilities. Yeah, from these park and ride facilities, they can just park the motorcycles there, and then they can go into the city centers by the public transportations. This is also one of the methods that now we are still doing the piloting in 14 cities in Indonesia. Yeah, but it is still very small scale. Yeah, because it is very difficult. Yeah, there are people against, especially the operator, the last operator, they are reluctant. They are resisting for this new policy. But like Jakarta, yeah, we do already have some so-called park and ride facilities. So this is quite close to the residential areas, so they can go by motorcycles. Actually, we're expecting for bicycles as well, but bicycle lanes still very rare, and it is difficult to establish the bicycle lane. And for the third one, from the climate agency, in Indonesia now we are, because we have a very big problem for our fuels, fossil fuel subsidy. Now we are promoting for our gas. It is for compressed and also for the liquid gas. Although mostly of our gas, it is export, especially to Korea. Thank you very much. Now we are using, yeah, because gas, it is very cheap, yeah, and more clean, and also we have a lot of source of this gas. So now it is developed very huge numbers in some cities for these gasifications, we call it. And for the cargo in Indonesia, not only cargo, passengers, more than 90% shares on land transportations. Yeah? So, but some of the passengers, public transportations, now we are developing in some cities, like there is a city in Sumatra, so-called Palembang. We are doing the integrations, public transportation, so combinations between, they got a big river there, yeah, so by having only in one management, they can use only one ticket, yeah, to get for the river bus and also for the road buses. Yeah, so we can doing the conservations of our energy. I think that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe now I can invite Dr. Cho first, around, then Dr. Gil later. Dr. Do you have any comments?
Actually, I think our idea is very fascinating, but I could not explain that successfully. So, but anyway, if you have another chance later, maybe I think our research result would contribute a lot to the international society, or especially for the developing countries. And thank you very much for your participation and attention. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Cho. Dr. Gil?